Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and here I'm trying out a new series which is basically titled Teach Me to Draw. The main focus of this series is to basically, hopefully, get people to submit artwork to me. You could do that on my Twitter account. My Twitter account is on the screen right now. Just send me some pictures that you've drawn and such like that, and I can go ahead and see what I can do to suggest how to make your drawing better. Now, I recognize that I'm not the best artist in the world, but I do get enough people asking me what would you suggest that I do in order to become a better artist. And I answer this question enough times that there are a number of things that I can suggest just right off the bat that's a consistent thing that people just need to know. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and just focus on those things. The things that are most common. Because, you know, there's a lot of beginning artists that they're just drawing from other artists. And typically it's things like Dragon Ball Z and such like that. And I want to kind of do a little bit of a study of Jim Lee, okay? This is a picture that's been around ever since I was a kid. This is one of the early comic book drawings made by Jim Lee. It's one of the most amazing images I've ever seen, probably because of nostalgia and stuff. So many different memories incorporated with it. So what we need to discuss, what is one thing that will greatly improve young or new artists' artwork? Well, for one, foreshortening, okay? Foreshortening is the one thing that you can do right now in order to improve your artwork. I guarantee it. Now, what is foreshortening? Okay, foreshortening is basically anytime anything is pointed at you. Like, for example, let's take a look at his leg, okay? So his leg is right here, right? Notice how long that is, how far my stylus has to travel from right here to here. Okay, now take a look at here. Notice how my stylus didn't have to travel nearly as far from here to here as it did from here to here. This is foreshortening right here. That's what foreshortening is. When things are pointed towards you. Most people's drawings, most new people's drawings, let me create a new file here. They look like this. And this isn't to be like overly critical or anything, but they try their best to make an interesting looking character or something. They kind of give him spiky hair because that's cool in anime for some reason. And then, you know, they give them, you know, ears, and then they copy whatever weird symbol that they see on their picture of what an eyeball is. And, you know, their favorite artist for some reason draws noses that look like an arrow for some reason. And so every time that they draw a nose, they draw the nose like an arrow. And they've studied really hard how their favorite artist draws eyebrows. And so they go ahead and they copy that. And really cool stuff. Now, and then, you know, they want it to be action-packed, so they make him angry. Okay, so he's angry, and you know, okay, so we have to have a lot of folds right here, and so he's angry, and then they're like, okay, so now I need to draw the head and you know, the body. Okay, so he's like Dragon Ball Z, so you know, they study what it looks like. No, actually, this is more like it. They draw the pectorials, and they're drawing from what they see, I guess, and you know, and this is exactly the workflow that a new artist or a young artist tends to have. They try to make everything perfect, and then they from the very beginning, and then they notice that there's a six-pack, you know, and you know, let's say it's Superman, okay? Like, I know that I try to avoid copyright stuff, but you know, in this case, you know, it looks so far away from being Superman that I don't think I'm going to get hit by any copyright infringement. Okay, so okay, and for a brand new artist, this right here is good. Okay, this is actually really good for a brand new artist, a young artist and such like that. Okay, now, some people, they're just a little bit better than this, but every single one of their pictures always seems to look the same. Their characters are always just standing just like this. Okay, and that's fine if all that you're trying to create is character designs. If you're just trying to create character designs, that's cool. But if you want a character that's like flying towards the camera or something like that, and you know, in some sort of action pose, so he's jumping towards the camera and all that. Yeah, so basically, so this would be his head right here. If you want to draw something like this, okay, this may seem obvious, but there's nothing coming at you. There's nothing that's literally... Okay, so we have... Let's say we have a box, okay? Let me just draw a box really quickly here. Okay, so this is a really crappy drawn box, okay? There's nothing in this image right here that's coming at you. Like that. Like on the box. There's nothing coming towards you. Like here, okay? This is coming... Like, if I were to draw a three-dimensional arrow for where this thigh is pointing towards, it would be something like... It would literally be that. Okay, so a 3D arrow in this case, for this leg, would be like that. Okay? And then for right here, we have another case where this leg is in 3D. That's how that calf is pointed. But in this case, we have another 3D arrow where it's pointed like that. Okay? So this arrow, like this calf right here is pointed away from us, and some of the things that help distinguish that is, well, there's subtlety to it and such like that. Of course, you know, for one, let's go ahead and deactivate this layer. For one, okay, so the top of the knee from one leg to the other is pretty much the same height. Okay, the bottom of the knee is about the same height. The height from one ankle to the other is about the same height, and then the bottom of the toes is about the same height. So if this leg is going like that at a profile angle, as indicated by these arrows, and this leg right here, its knee is right here and it ends right here. Obviously, this leg right here is going to be pointed, it's where the ankle is, it's going to be further away than where the knee is, okay? It's just common sense when you look at this. But not only that, but notice the clever shading and such, which indicates that this portion is further away from this portion because it's underneath. It's underneath all of this. Now, you don't always draw like that. It all depends on where the light source is. So where is the light source? Well, we have a shadow here, okay? We seem to have a lot of shading here. And, you know, for some reason we have shading here, but we also have shading right here, here. Okay, we have a lot of shading right on through here, okay? And, you know, yeah, so, but it's so stinking bright. If I were to lighten this up, so bright here, so bright around here, and here, and here, and here. You know, you want to know where the light source is? It's obviously right here. This is where the light source is. If I were to draw it, it would be... trying to think about in 3D, but I literally just think that it's literally at a right angle to him, pointed down like that. That's where the light is coming from. So since the light is coming from above, clearly, obviously from above, it's possible for this area to be, you know, shrouded in darkness and shadow. But there's more than this, okay? So now we have this. Look at this. We have another case where, you know, if I were to draw a three-dimensional arrow to signify this arm, it would be something like this, okay? Okay, so it's not really... Actually, 1 second. No, that is about a profile arm, okay? A profile arm is like this profile arm. Like that, okay? Not like this, where basically this is pointing almost like this arm is pointing straight at you. This arm right here, okay? So that's how the arrow is with that. This arm is pointing away from us. Okay, so this is the profile view of the thigh, okay? But the thing is that the torso, this portion right here, is literally, if I were to draw the 3D arrow, that's what the 3D arrow would be, to indicate which direction this torso is pointing, okay? That's like it's pointing down towards the groin region right here, okay? So this leg right here is something like that, okay? 3D arrow pointed like that. Having things come towards you and away from you. This is what makes a good image, okay? So this arm, if I were to draw a three-dimensional arrow of where this thing is going, it would be something like this. So that's the three-dimensional arrow. Of course, it's kind of a curving arrow. If you want to have a straight arrow to indicate which direction it's pointing, then fine, I can do that. This arm is pointing towards us. His torso is pointing towards us. His head towards his chin, okay? His head is pointing away from us. Very subtly, actually. It's very subtle. But his head is indeed pointed away from us. Just a little bit, okay? Okay, so I've gone ahead and done this with a number of images and made a bit of a time lapse of me doing this with a variety of Jim Lee's images. Now, I understand that these images are copywritten, but if you take copywritten material and you leave a commentary or a critique of some sort, then you're allowed to do that legally. And so that's the reason why I'm doing this. There's no copyright infringement going on here. And so now you guys know that having things come towards you or away from you, that's what makes a good image. Okay, just having an image that has up, down, left, right, that's just a flat image. It's boring. Okay, having things coming at you, that's cool. All right, but now composition does come into play. Now, don't get me wrong. Composition comes into play about as much as foreshortening. But, you know, composition you can learn at any point in time. You could be a master of it when you first begin making artwork. You can do that just by drawing a bunch of different colored boxes on a piece of paper or with triangles and geometric shapes. And after you're able to get a bunch of geometric shapes to make a really cool composition, you know, you're good at composition at that point. Whereas foreshortening takes a lot of skill. So the question that I see coming at me at this point is, well, okay, now I know that I should probably take a look at, you know, my favorite images and such like that, and, you know, draw out three-dimensional arrows going the direction of the appendages to see where there's foreshortening and where there's not, in order to recognize where the foreshortening is. Okay, I know that. And so now I can recognize what's foreshortened, when, and why, and all that good stuff. But how do I draw foreshortening? Okay, that's what I see coming at me. And, there's two different approaches, okay? Now, you can draw from other artists, but the thing is you do that, and you're going to be learning just kind of a warped view of what reality is. Whereas if you just drew from reality, you would have your own perception of reality. It's kind of like having a hero or something and trying to, model yourself after a hero. If you keep doing that for too much, what you have is a working model of the world based off of somebody else's working model of the world, which is flawed, seriously flawed. Okay? And so your model based off of a model is going to be even more flawed than theirs. So if you're going to create a working model of how the universe works and what you perceive, how everything works, it's best that you actually look at everything and draw from it in reality. Okay? And I'm actually going to show you some of the reason why. Later on, I have this Superman image, and I show, okay, well, this is a really interesting stylistic choice, but it's wrong. Anatomically, it's wrong. And such like that. So, again, how to get better with drawing foreshortening, okay? Yes, you can draw from other artists. I did it when I was a kid, but if you really want to get truly better, okay, get a photograph, draw from the photograph. Now, you don't necessarily have to, point the camera at you, take the picture, and then draw you. You can go ahead and have a picture of Goku on the side, and you can go ahead and draw the pose that you have with the camera angle and everything inside of the photograph, and then you could draw Goku's face on it. You could do all of that, okay? Yeah, and that may sound like a pain in the butt, but the thing is that when I was a kid, it was an even bigger pain in the butt than it is now. Okay, back when I was a kid, just getting a crappy camera was extremely expensive. Getting the film was expensive. Getting the film developed was expensive. That's 3 different expenses. Nowadays, you just buy a phone or, an iPod Touch or something, or, a $20 crappy digital camera off of Amazon will do, even. You go there, you get your camera, and you take your pictures. It's a heck of a lot easier nowadays. And, you don't necessarily have to print them. We have things like iPads and et cetera, computers. And you're just taking a glance at your iPad or at your computer screen and while you draw, that does wonders. And you don't necessarily have to draw digitally in order to do that. So, the person who started with foreshortening, really, inside of comic books, was Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was an amazing artist that really, really had some really interesting images. If you compare his artwork to anyone of his day around the 1970s and such like that, it's great work. You compare any of Jack Kirby's artwork to, say, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, such like that, not really. I honestly don't really like Jack Kirby's work. But if it wasn't for Jack Kirby, there would have been no Jim Lee. There would have never been a Todd McFarlane. So it's important to, even if you don't really admire the artwork of a particular artist, you have to kind of recognize where they're where they're coming from, what sort of accomplishments that they happen to have. I respect Jack Kirby for what he is and what he did for the comic book industry. Okay, so really closely here. Like here, I draw out this arm that's coming towards us on Superman. And here I draw the deltoid a little bit too small, but the anatomy of what I draw to represent his arm is more photorealistic. This is the anatomy as it would appear inside of a photograph. But, you know, Jim Lee over-exaggerated the deltoid on the other side of his body, on the page left side. So he was allowed to get away with over-exaggerating the anatomy of the deltoid on the page right side of Superman there. But even still, most of that deltoid would have been covered up. And so it should still be a little bit smaller. And yet we look at this image of Superman and we accept it. This is the weird thing about drawing from other artists. They learn to draw stylized. They learn to draw things that aren't necessarily real. Okay? And especially with comic books. And the way that comic book artists draw is and create a style is different than how cartoon animator would wind up stylizing the images. And actually, I used to draw from Rob Liefeld a lot as a kid, and that was something that actually stifled my progress for a really long time. Rob Liefeld is one of the top-selling comic book artists, or at least he was in the 1990s. And to be honest, nowadays I look at his artwork and I think his artwork kind of sucks. Okay, and it's no wonder why his artwork kind of held me back. Okay, basically inside of comic book artwork, when they draw all stylized and such, it's really Todd McFarlane that revolutionized the stylization of comic books. He really brought in the graphic design aspect of all of it. Early in his career, when he started kind of working solo, he started working on things like Spider-Man comic books. And you look at the artwork for his Spider-Man comic books, they blew everything else that had to do with Spider-Man out of the water. Like, without a doubt. They were amazing. And what is it that he did? Well, he over-exaggerated the pose. He started breaking bones and such like that, because he was emphasizing the spider in Spider-Man, while all the other artists prior to him was emphasizing the man in Spider-Man. Okay? And then Jim Lee with that Superman pose that I mentioned earlier. It's interesting because it's almost as if Jim Lee tore off Superman's arm there and then put it closer towards the camera and made just an over-exaggerated parallax effect. Okay, that's ultimately what that was there. An over-exaggerated parallax and an over-exaggerated foreshortening effect. And it works. It works inside of the image. It looks highly stylized and it looks appealing. And so that's why you should and should not draw from comic book artists. Because if you pick the wrong comic book artist, or if you pick the wrong artist in general, whether they happen to be working with comic books or not, well, you pick the wrong artist and it could stifle your progress. You might wonder why you're not able to get the pose and everything that you like. Okay, so let's take a moment to talk about this series, Teach Me to Draw series, okay? Now, if you want me to take a look at your artwork, go ahead and contact me on Twitter. @Orphanlast is my handle there. And go ahead and include, hashtag TMTD, which is Teach Me to Draw. And send me your pictures and ask me, how can this image improve? Or send me a bunch of images and say, what in general do I need to improve on? And I'll go ahead and give you an honest answer. Now, keep in mind that when you do this, you're asking for a critique. And critiques are very difficult to handle because you're literally saying something's wrong with my work. Tell me what it is. And then someone goes ahead and mentions it and says, this is what's wrong with your work. And then since it's your work, you're attached to it emotionally. And you may feel like, oh, no, I'm a terrible artist. That's not the point of a critique. The point of the critique is to make you better. Is what it is. So feel free to do that. This series is alive and well for you guys. Hopefully you guys like it. Anyways, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys didn't like it, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. And if you guys would like to take a look at any of my other videos, feel free to click on any of them that are appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.